were called to the community after a 2-year-old girl was brought to the nursing station with serious injuries. She was pronounced deceased at the nursing station. An autopsy showed the child died as a result of injuries. Yesterday, Burma Sky, who is the primary caregiver of the girl, was arrested and charged. Bloodvein, RCMP, and Major Crimes continue to investigate. Winnipeg City Councillors approved a plan to sign a contract for a new police helicopter, but as the CBC's Cameron McLean reports, some councillors worry about the cost.
The draft 2025 budget has already gone through some changes. Public backlash pushed councillors to scrap a proposed pilot project to raise the threshold for the city's first snowplow. And last week, the Executive Policy Committee added $23 million to demolish the Arlington Bridge and begin designing a replacement. Fort Rouge East Fort Garry councillor Sherry Rowlands announced yesterday she would not vote for the budget. She says the budget lacks crucial details, including a forthcoming report on water and sewer rates. Rowlands resigned as chair of the Property Committee last week. This year's budget raises property taxes by 5.95%, the biggest increase since 1990. The city faces the prospect of needing to find nearly $11 million to cover a deficit from last year after draining its reserve fund. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Manitoba Nurses Union says the Northern Health Authority needs a better response after someone fired a gun in the Thompson hospital. On Christmas Eve, Mounties arrested a man in the hospital's chapel after he pointed a long gun at staff and shot out a window. In response, the health authority says all hospital doors, save for the ER door, will be locked starting at 7 p.m. But Nurses Union President Darlene Jackson says that won't stop violence and weapons coming into healthcare facilities.
The facility is not safe when we have people walking in with a long gun and firing shots in a hospital at 4:15 in the afternoon. Saying we'll lock the door at 7 o'clock is a Band-Aid. It doesn't fix the problem. The problem is that we have weapons coming into facilities all over this province any time of day and night.
Jackson says they need institutional safety officers in places like Thompson, not just in Winnipeg and Brandon. She says the province needs to provide more money for security. Northern Health says it has security personnel stationed at Thompson Hospital 24 hours a day. And Manitoba Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera says they're already working on improving safety at the hospital.
I've given direction to Shared Health and the Northern Regional Health Authority to prioritize staffing up and training institutional safety officers for Thompson, and to do that as quickly as possible.
Asseguera admits it could take months before institutional safety officers are in Thompson Hospital. They say it'll take time to consult with First Nations and other community members to ensure safety needs are met and to train people locally to fill the positions. Now to Washington, D.C.
At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident, and we have recovered 27 people from the plane and 1 from the helicopter.
D.C. Fire Chief John Donnelly speaking about the search and recovery efforts on the Potomac River. An American Airlines jet on approach to Ronald Reagan National Airport collided with a military helicopter last night. Both plunged into the dark, cold waters. There were 64 passengers and crew on the plane and 3 Army personnel in the Black Hawk. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump framed the plane crash as an attack on Democrats and diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Without providing any evidence, he accused them of putting DEI ahead of competence in the hiring of air traffic controllers. Caroline Bargout explains.
This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital.
U.S. President Donald Trump started off with a message of unity. He said the U.S. is one family, and today we are all heartbroken. But then his message quickly turned. Without any evidence, he took aim at a number of people and blamed them for the crash. He said the air traffic controller should have done more to get the helicopter off the plane's flight path, that the Black Hawk pilot should have seen the plane. Ultimately, Trump blamed diversity and inclusion hiring practices implemented under the Democrats.
Well, you have many, many planes coming into one target. You need a very special talent and a very special genius to be able to do it. Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment.
Trump said last week he signed an executive order restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and says the U.S. will make sure these things don't happen again. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Washington.
And Hamas released another 8 hostages today during a chaotic scene in Han Yunis. 3 Israelis and 5 Thai farm workers were handed over to the Red Cross. They were led through an angry crowd that jostled and jeered the hostages. The reaction prompted Israel to delay the release of 110 Palestinian prisoners and detainees for several hours. This is the third exchange since the current ceasefire went into effect. A high of -3 this afternoon in Winnipeg with a few clouds. In Brandon, a mix of sun and cloud and a high around -3. Dauphin, mainly cloudy, a high of -2. In Flin Flon, a mix of sun and cloud, a high of -21 degrees this afternoon. Thompson, mainly sunny, a high of -26. And in Churchill on the Bay, you're looking for a high of -22 with a chance of flurries. Right now, you're listening to CBC Radio 1.
Good afternoon and welcome to Radio Noon. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten and you're at 89.3 FM, 990 AM. Nice and sunny out there for now and highs of -3 today. We're nearly there. Coming up on the show today, getting in to see a doctor can be hard, but going online to look for medical advice is easy. Too bad that advice is often wrong. A new survey shows medical misinformation is on the increase online. More and more Canadians are running into medical misinformation when they do go online, and we'll hear more about why that's a problem. And we want to hear from you. Do you use Dr. Google? Why do you use Dr. Google? And what's your experience been when you've talked to your doctor? Coming right up, one Manitoba farmer is bracing for what tariffs could mean for the future of his livelihood and the 22 people he employs. Manitoba's farmers are bracing for what might happen if U.S. President Donald Trump makes good on a threat to slap steep tariffs on Canadian goods. Agriculture and agri-food accounts for 7% of Canada's GDP, with 60% of ag exports heading south. More than 2 million Canadians work in agriculture. That's 1 in 9 jobs. John Nickel farms near Low, Manitoba, and employs more than 20 people to help look after the 6,000 sows on 2 southern Manitoba farms. CBC's Karen Pauls first asked who he mostly sells to.
We sell actually all our pigs into the U.S. market. Yeah, we've been doing this now for over 20 years, actually. So we have the sows here, and we have a really good arrangement with another family farm in the U.S. in Minnesota that takes all our pigs and raises them to processing weight. So they're born here, and then we export them to the U.S. to our buyer for processing. Well, they grow them up and then they go to processing there.
And what could potential tariffs mean for you?
Well, it would definitely be a negative impact. If there was a tariff, then, you know, who pays for it, right? And we don't know. We haven't really, we're just really working really hard to avoid that situation. So at this point, you know, everything is up in the air, really.
And I guess like your market, your buyers or your buyer will either pay the extra tax or take less product. What do you do if they start turning away some of your product?
Yeah, that would be a really negative impact. Manitoba, Canada, and Manitoba especially is a big exporter of pigs. So today it would be really difficult for us to find an alternative market here in Canada.
And what does that mean for real people? Does that mean we all have to eat more ham and bacon, or does that mean you have to destroy animals?
Well, hopefully it never comes to that, right? But I mean, we would have to cut back our production, or I mean, worst case scenario, shut down the farm. I mean, if we don't have a market, so that would affect that's something I've been doing for over 40 years. Our staff, so yeah, it'd be really negative. Very bad.
And I know, this could potentially affect agriculture in a lot of different ways, but if you're a grain farmer, you can store your grain. You can't store live animals.
No, that is the reality, right? So we always have to be thinking ahead, and I mean, yeah, we certainly hope it would never ever come to that, and I'm optimistic that it will not come to that, and that, you know, cooler heads will prevail, and we manage to work our way through this.
in terms of what you produce, what's the timeline?
We actually do, we have piglets born every day. So we export to the U.S. every week. You know, we could possibly hold a week, maybe 2, maybe 3, but sooner or later the animals have to move to the next production phase, right? Yeah.
And is there any place in Canada or Manitoba where you could process them if needed?
There is probably some capacity for more processing in Canada. However, what's lacking is finishing space. So like I said, these pigs go to the U.S. for what we call finishing, and we are lacking that in Canada.
And that's not something that can be ramped up quickly?
No, I mean, you're talking about finding building sites, finding appropriate areas to build the barns, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're talking about years. Yeah.
It's so hard because farmers are already working on such narrow margins. Even when the cost of things go up, commodities or meat products, you don't necessarily see that benefit. So how worrying is this potential trade war with sort of those narrow margins you work with?
It is. It's very concerning, and nobody wants this, right? Our American friends don't want this. My customer doesn't want it. We obviously don't want it. Nobody really wants this or needs it.
And you could get, we saw the feed truck roll in. You could get hit with counter tariffs as well if the cost of food and different inputs goes up as well. What are you looking at there? What's your concern?
Yeah, true enough, right? So I mean, we use equipment that's made in the U.S. or sourced from the U.S. We use soybean meal that comes from the U.S. at times. So there's a possibility that the cost of that could also go up. You're correct. Yeah.
So how are you guys feeling looking at this coming our way?
Concerned, obviously, very concerned, but optimistic that it won't happen. I think North America, Canada, North America, we have an amazing food supply system. People want to know where their food comes from. It comes from right here, right? It comes from people like us. You know, we're making your food every day, so yeah, don't forget about us.
Do you think that, I know they're talking about potential aid packages, emergency aid packages like they provided during COVID. Would that help you?
I suppose, but I'd rather not, right? I'd rather earn my living. So again, let's hope it doesn't come to that. Just let us do our business, carry on, right? I'd rather do it that way.
John Nichols speaking with CBC's Karen Pauls near Low Farm, Manitoba. And you can get the latest updates on the looming tariffs on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Whether it's breaking news from around the world, across the country, or in your own hometown, it's all at your fingertips on the CBC News app. Get the top stories from where you live under the local tab, or watch video clips, live events, and the national on your smartphone or tablet. Get all the news you want, when you want it, where you want it, with the CBC News app. Download the app for free today.
You're listening to Radio Noon at 89.3 FM, 990 AM. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten. Coming up on our call-in today, it's all about the failings of Dr. Google. There's a new survey out saying that medical misinformation is growing at an 8% rate just since last year. We will talk to a misinformation expert about why this is and the damage it can do. We want to hear from you. Do you use Dr. Google? What have you found, and how does that work? Is it because you can't see a doctor yourself? Do you just want to be armed with some information? Give us a call, 204-780-0893. That's coming up on our call-in after the 12:30 news. And in just a minute, the Wheat City has a new city manager hired from a pool of 35 applicants. Coming up, we'll hear how his experience as a CAO for the city of Winnipeg will help him thrive in his new role. Let's take a look at the forecast for today. In Winnipeg, a mix of sun and cloud. That fog's pretty much gone away, and we're hoping for a high of -3. Tonight, in the Winnipeg region, cloudy with a 30% chance of flurries. Winds becoming north at 20, gusting to 40, and lows of -18. Looking ahead in the region, wind chill -30 on Friday night with some strong winds, with the temperature dropping then rising. Okay. Some temperatures right now: Brandon -10, Churchill -23, Dauphin -6, Gimli -5, The Pas -23, Thompson -30, and in Winnipeg, it's mostly sunny and -4. It's just coming up to 16 minutes after 12 o'clock, not before 1 o'clock, after 12. Brandon has a new city manager. Dave Wardrop has been hired to fill the job that's been open since August of last year. He was hired from a pool of 35 applicants and has more than 30 years' experience of municipal leadership, mostly as Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Winnipeg. To learn more about him, we've reached Dave Wardrop today by Zoom. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Laurie. Thanks for having me.
Oh, pleasure. So tell me, Dave, why did you apply for this job?
Well, for clarification, my past role was Chief Transportation and Utilities Officer with the City of Winnipeg. I'm currently Chief Administrative Officer for the municipality of West St. Paul. And there's a lot of exciting things going on in the City of Brandon right now. There's some great growth, some great momentum, and an exciting time to join the team and the success that the council is having there.
So what's the most appealing aspect of this new job for you?
You know, I think it's the community and the council's commitment to building long-term sustainability for Brandon, both financially in terms of service delivery itself. I think there's a real commitment within council, within the workforce, within the community for service excellence, and I'm really excited to be part of that.
And you're used to that kind of municipal city kind of culture, right? So you know what you're getting into here.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked over 30 years now in the municipal environment as a professional engineer and a professional accountant. So I have a good sense. I think I bring a lot for the team. I look forward to learning from the team and working with the team, and I'm very optimistic about where things are going.
You've spoken about some of the attributes of the job, but most of your career was built in Winnipeg and East St. Paul. This is like a geographic move for you. So why did you choose Brandon?
Well, again, I think there's a real positive culture there that I look forward to build upon. But there's a lot of exciting projects and initiatives that are moving forward at an aggressive pace. We see a water treatment plant expansion that's planned. We see wastewater infrastructure projects, investment in fleet initiatives, new transit buses being purchased, and fleet refurbishment. There's land drainage improvements all throughout the community, particularly in the southeast portion of the community, and facility improvements, including the new police operations center, parks and recreation service improvements, solid waste projects. Really a whole host of initiatives that are very exciting.
Now, I know, of course, your skills as both an engineer and an accountant are going to serve you well, and your many years of experience. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, you led the operations during the flood of the century in '97, which I certainly remember extremely well. And so what skills that you used in that role, handling that level of emergency and importance, are going to help you in this new role with sort of more bigger picture projects?
Yeah, the interesting thing about municipal service and leadership in municipal services is I think you have to have sort of a long-term strategic view, where you want to take the community itself, where you want to take the organization, where you want to be in 5, 10, 25, even 50 years. And this is long-term planning. But that type of planning and that kind of strategy is interrupted by urgency and urgent events. And we always have to be ready for that and prepared for that. And we need to be prepared operationally and prepared in terms of emergency preparedness as well. So So I think I bring a background that's well tested in both sort of elements of municipal leadership.
Mm-hmm. So some of the projects that you're talking about underway would reflect this already, but what do you think are the biggest challenges facing Brandon right now?
Well, I think council has taken, Brandon Council has taken a long-term view in terms of centering sustainable growth, centering its plans around sustainable growth and an even better community going forward. And I think there's a shift in thinking that's taken place. And I think that long-term view is very prudent of council and is going to serve the community well. I think some of the budgeting exercises that they've gone through have maintained sort of the essential services while also planning for that long-term sustainability. And that's a tough move to make. That's a tough move to make for councils. A lot of times the temptation is to be short-sighted, and I'm really pleased to see the initiative and the strength of council on this.
Well, that kind of leads into my next question, which is about taxation. When I spoke with Mayor Jeff Fawcett, he talked about having to take that long-term view in terms of the property tax hikes and how, in some ways, he wished he'd taken it earlier. So avoiding the property tax hike for some years, but now they've passed a 6.9% tax increase. So where do you think those funds should be used? Is that to go with this long-term view?
I think the council's plan, and I think it's a good one, is to ensure that existing service levels are maintained, to see capital reserves topped off and strengthened for sort of long-term planning and infrastructure investment. I think council is worked very hard to bring down what was initially proposed to be somewhere in the order of an 11.7% tax increase. And I think they worked hard to bring that down to 6.9%. They listened to residents. They did some hard work in terms of prioritization. And I really think they've struck a good balance here.
So before I let you go, what are you most looking forward to as you make this move to Brandon and the new role, both personally and professionally?
Well, I think Brandon's a great community. I can't wait to join it, to be part of the team. Very livable city, looking on building on that and improving on that, and growing into to even better times.
Well, congratulations on your new role, and have a great time in Brandon.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dave Wardrop is the new city manager for Brandon. He starts his job on March 17th. You're listening to Radio Noon. It's just coming up to 23 minutes after 12 o'clock. Well, time now for our Word Nerd with the story behind a comfy little number. Here's Elizabeth Withy with the story of comfort.
What makes you uncomfortable? Maybe it's a swelteringly hot day or a brutally cold one. A hard chair? A tiny airplane seat? Maybe it's an awkward conversation or bumping into an ex or someone who stands too close. We all have a comfort zone, and we all know what it feels like to be outside of it. Discomfort is the opposite of comfort, a word that goes back to the 1200s. It was originally comforten or comfortable, meaning cheer up or console, something offered to a person who is troubled or grieving. And it comes from Old French, conforter, and before that, late Latin, confortare, meaning to strengthen a lot.
When my life becomes invisible, you're the only light I need, baby. You comfort me.
The Latin roots of the word comfort, calm and fort, translate as with and strong. In other words, Comfort gives you strength, resilience. At some point in the 1300s, the N switched to M, possibly because it made it more comfortable to say comfortable.
Those must be comfortable shoes. I bet you could walk all day in shoes like that and not feel a thing. I wish I had shoes like that.
My feet hurt.
Originally, comfort was used in reference to our mental or spiritual state of mind. Today, comfort is often more in reference to something physical, something that gives us pleasure, enjoyment, relaxation. A comfortable bed with a comfortable pillow, draped under a comforter. But never forget, finding comfort isn't only about choosing the best place to park your behind. It's also about finding the friends or words or music or whatever it is you need to feel strong.
And our glasses are filled with charity's gifts by the hands of comfort and kind. By the hands of comfort and kind.
For CBC Radio, I'm Elizabeth Whitty.
And if there's a word you're wondering about, drop a line to wordnerd@cbc.ca. I think we have time to squeeze in a tune here. Here is Sashili Sadare, which, by the way, means my younger brother, my older sister in Dene. Here they are with Hold On.
Ever have a dream that you couldn't control? A dream where the darkness swallowed you whole. You're looking for a way to calm it down and you breathe. You thought you had a handle, you thought you could deal, but the ground opened up, you never did feel the same again. It's hard to face another day. You gotta hold sun don't set and all is calm.
I will say that my one true love will get through this. I know we will. And we'll be wild and we'll be brave and hold on. Hold on.
Sashile Sadare with Hold On. You're listening to Radio Noon, and coming up on our call-in, do you ever look online for medical advice? because sometimes getting into a doctor can be hard, but going online for medical advice is so easy. Too bad Dr. Google's advice is often wrong, and it's getting worse. We'll have a misinformation expert on with us, but we want to hear what's your experience being getting a medical advice online, and why do you do it? Because you can't get a doctor? Because you want to be well armed when you see the doctor? Give us a call, 204-780-0893. That's our call-in after the 12:30 news, which is next.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at -3 with sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. A 2-year-old in Bloodvein is dead, and a 56-year-old woman is facing second-degree murder charges. Mounties were called to the community last Friday after the toddler was brought to the nursing station with serious injuries. She was pronounced dead at the nursing station, and an autopsy showed the girl died as a result of the injuries. Yesterday, Burma Sky, who is the primary caregiver for the girl, was arrested and charged. Police continue to investigate. Winnipeg City Councillors voted to approve a plan for a new police helicopter. It's a lease-to-own contract worth $13.5 million. It'll replace the current police chopper, purchased 15 years ago for $3.5 million. Today, City Councillors, some questioned why the price of the new chopper is nearly 400% more than the current one, and also pointed out the deal for the original helicopter included annual operating funding from the province. In the end, councillors approved the plan by a vote of 14-2, with councillors Brian Mays and Jason Schreier voting against. The new helicopter is expected to take up to 2 years to arrive. And the Manitoba Nurses Union says locking the Thompson Hospital doors at night is just a Band-Aid solution to a bigger problem. Recently, the Northern Health Authority said all doors to the hospital, except for the ER door, will be locked after 7 p.m. This comes after a man was arrested for pointing a long gun at hospital staff and shooting out a window in the hospital chapel on Christmas Eve. Nurses Union President Darlene Jackson says this does little to address the issue of violence in healthcare facilities.
Saying we'll lock the doors at 7 o'clock at night and then we'll have a safe facility. The incident on Christmas Eve happened at 4:15 in the afternoon. So what we're saying is we don't have safe facilities at any time.
Jackson says institutional safety officers are needed in communities like Thompson, not just in Winnipeg and Brandon. Meanwhile, the health ministry says it's already working on improving safety at Thompson Hospital, but it could take months to get the new safety officers in place. Time is needed, it says, to consult with community members, including First Nations, and to train people to fill the positions locally in the community. And meanwhile, Northern Health says it has security personnel stationed at the hospital 24 hours a day in the meantime. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg. For news anytime, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba, or you can use the CBC News app.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Back soon.
That's Matt Humphrey at the CBC News Desk. You're listening to CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM. This is Radio Noon. Let's take a look at the weather. In Winnipeg today, a mix of sun and clouds, highs of -3. And tonight, cloudy with a chance of flurries and lows of -18. In Brandon and Dauphin, increasing cloudiness today. Winds at 15 kilometers an hour out of the north, highs of -3. Tonight, cloudy, chance of flurries, lows of -18. In the Gimli region, sun and cloud, some winds at 15 kilometers an hour too from an undisclosed direction, but let's say north. Highs of -4. Tonight, cloudy, chance of flurries and lows of -19. In Thompson today, mainly cloudy. Everyone's got 15-kilometer winds. Okay, there too. Highs of -26, which is really cold. Lows of -23 tonight. And tomorrow in Thompson, sunny and highs of -23. So it's really kind of cold. The further north you get, wait for this. Churchill, mix of sun and cloud. Chance of flurries. Winds northwest at 30 kilometers an hour. Highs of -22. The wind chill there is -39. And tonight, chance of flurries, lows of -31. And the wind chill overnight, -44. Now that's cold. On Friday, mainly sunny in Churchill and highs of -27. Well, practically balmy. And at night, down to -32. Right now, some temperatures for you around the province. In Brandon, it's -10. Churchill, -23. Dauphin is -6. In Gimli, it's -5. The Paw reporting -23. In Thompson, -30. In Winnipeg at this hour, it's -4. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten. You're listening to Radio Noon. It is just 25 minutes before 1 o'clock. So, do you ever go online for medical advice? But consulting Dr. Google may be hazardous to your health. The Canadian Medical Association and Abacus Data released a survey early this month that suggests that health misinformation is on the rise. The survey, I'll tell you a bit about it. 3,700 Canadian adults participated back in November of 2024. And one of the results suggests that more than 1/3 of Canadians have turned to the internet for medical advice. But more and more often, that advice is wrong. Misinformation is piling up out there, and we want to know, what has your experience been seeking medical information online? Give us a call at 204-780-0893, or you can text me at 204-588-7355. Has it given you false hope? Has it given you a terrifying diagnosis that turned out to be wrong? And are you wary of online advice, but can't get in to see your doctor? Have you lost faith in the medical profession? Or maybe you just wanted to be able to discuss your symptoms in a knowledgeable way with your doctor. And also, tell me, what's been your doctor's reaction when you say that you've been researching online? Give me a call, 204-780-0893, or if you want to text, 204-588-7355. Our guest today is University of Alberta law professor and misinformation expert Timothy Caulfield. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for being with us. So this was a big survey. What are the main points?
Yeah, and this survey, Laurie, it's very consistent with other research that's been done, not just in Canada, but really around the world. And it shows that more and more people are getting their health information online. It's showing that more and more people are distrusting traditional sources of health information. And more importantly, more and more people are believing, and look, and I'm not blaming the public or patients, but more and more people are believing demonstrably false things about their health. And this is all because of our chaotic information environment and the role that entities like social media are playing in shaping our beliefs.
Wow. So, 6 impossible things before breakfast has become reality for everybody. So, but why? Why is this happening?
Well, I think there's a bunch of factors. Obviously, you can hate my answer. It's a complex phenomenon. For sure, the rise of social media and online information has played a huge role. Our information environment is just so chaotic right now, and it's filled with nonsense. So we did a study that came out just a couple months ago where we looked at Amazon books about cancer. So here's a serious topic. People get diagnosed with cancer. They're afraid. They go online to buy a book about it. A very sensible action. And we found that almost 50% of the books that are returned when you do an Amazon search are misleading or just full-on bunk. And listen to this. 70% of the returns on the first page, it was actually 69%, complete nonsense. So there's so much damaging information out there. Where do you start? Another study from Australia found 60% of fitness information online misleading or complete nonsense. And another study done by colleagues of mine found that over 1/3 of the mental health information online, social media, etc., full of nonsense. So yeah, you have to be careful when you're getting your information online.
Wow, those numbers are really high. So what's the responsibility of the platforms? Anything? Like to publish this bunk?
Yeah, well, you can see, I absolutely think that the platforms have some responsibility. But alas, all the platforms are going in the exact opposite direction. Mm-hmm. We saw the move from Meta just a few weeks ago, where they decided to, so this is, Facebook, Instagram, they decided to stop fact checking, right? And Zuckerberg justified this move, based on, demonstrably false ideas about why he should make that move. So yes, I think that the platforms hold a responsibility here. And I think it's really important to highlight, because when you start talking about fighting misinformation, people will think, some people think, censorship or cancel culture or silencing. On the contrary, fact checking is about working within the marketplace of ideas, right? To make sure that there is correct information available for people to make an informed decision.
Yeah, and we want our listeners to give us a call about what their experience has been, because there is so much information out there. We'd like to hear from our listeners about what has their experience been and why do they go to the internet? Are they wary? Are they aware? And in fact, we have, well, give us a call, 204-780-0893, or you can text at 204-588-7855. No, 7355, something like that. But we do have a text from Sarah. She messaged us to say, I'm definitely not getting all my health information from Google, but my doctor does not seem as interactive as my doctor was in the 90s. You do have to consult, and you can't believe everything the internet says, I guess this is. But when you need your doctor to go a bit forward and you have an issue, it helps a little bit. So I wonder, part of this is that a lot of people don't have a doctor, or they can't get in to see a doctor for weeks, and that rash has been there for a while. How much is that driving it?
This is an excellent point, and one that the Canadian Medical Association survey found also, right? And again, our own research has found this. Look, people's experience with the conventional system is often strained, right? Doctors are overworked. They don't have a lot of time to spend with patients. And so patients can feel like they're not being listened to, or that all of their problems are not being heard. Layer on top of that, many Canadians don't even have a family physician right now. So you can see why they might be driven to social media and to the internet more broadly, and turning to controversial providers, right? People that are listening to them. And so the faults with our conventional system are kind of enabling the quacks and the grifters who are pushing health misinformation to sell products or to fulfill another agenda. So it's kind of a worst case scenario, right? Where you have people, they don't have the ability to access good healthcare information, and those the misinformation mongers, as I call them, are taking advantage of that need by providing nonsense.
And you hear somewhat anyway that the sort of conspiracy theory that this is a scientific and medical infrastructure withholding information, and these people are purveyors of the truth.
Oh yeah, you hear that? I hear that daily. Put it that way. And of course, it is a conspiracy theory. But you raise a really important point that I think has broad implications. So the Canadian Medical Association survey found this. Many other studies around the world have found this increasing distrust, right, of institutions. And we even heard this with the RFK Jr. confirmation hearing yesterday. They place the blame for that distrust on the institutions, on the healthcare system, on the scientists. And for sure, the academic community, the healthcare community needs to listen and learn and do better. But research tells us, and this is an area where we do research tells us that much of that distrust, if not most of it, has been created by the spread of misinformation. So you spread misinformation in order to create distrust in the conventional sources of science and health information, to make room for the nonsense that you want people to believe. And unfortunately, it's a very effective strategy.
I remember, I guess, during COVID, where people jumped on the fact that medical information changed because the science changed, because they found out that what was working before, we know more now and it's different. And that was seized upon as making it up.
Yeah, another excellent point. You weaponize people changing their mind. In one of my recent works, I argue that changing your mind based on the evolution of evidence should be a badge of honor, not something that you're ashamed of. That's how science works. And there's really interesting research that tells us that this idea of scientific humility is one of the strongest predictors of not falling for misinformation and spreading good quality information, because you recognize that science is hard. It's always evolving, right? And you recognize that you perhaps don't know stuff. And I suggest that we should all keep a list of things that we've changed our mind on based to the evolution, because of the evolution of evidence. Or maybe you've modified a position based on the evolution of good science, right? And we should all have that list. And if you don't have that list, that's a problem.
We could find it on the internet.
Yeah, you could probably find that list on the internet.
There's another text has come in, and we'd like to hear from you. Give us a call, 204-780-0893, or text us at 204-588-7355 with what's your experience being getting information or misinformation online. We have a text from Ari. I've seen my doctor open up Google to educate me once. It made me feel like I was in the office for something I could have Googled on my own. Other doctors have rolled their eyes when I mentioned I've Googled my symptoms. I've heard that before. He's experienced this. This is in northern Manitoba. What's your response?
Well, it's frustrating whenever a patient feels like they're being belittled or not listened to. I don't think that's a good thing, right? And the other thing to recognize is we don't want to, here we're talking about how bad all the information is on the internet. You want to be skeptical, but you don't want to be cynical, right? You need to recognize that there is good information available on the internet, in our information environment. And a good physician, and I know there are more and more of them out there, they recognize this. And the internet's not going away, social media is not going away. So hopefully the one that did Google it right there in the
office,
in the clinic, was showing someone credible information and how to find it. I think that's a good skill to have, but you shouldn't belittle people who come in. And look, most of the I work with the clinical community a lot. Most of them recognize this, right? And we have to be able to work with our information environment that we have right now. As I said, it's not going away.
Right. Now, so if people are going to look online, and let's face it, everybody does, if only because it's 2 weeks till your appointment or something and you want to just see, and that maybe a little cider vinegar will just like fix your broken leg. Well, you just never know. So what are some of the red flags to help people spot that what they're getting is a load of old codswallop or something? What are some of the reliable sites? Uh-oh, Paul is frozen. We better look up online how to fix this. Hello, Paul, are you there? Uh-oh, I think... Well, I'll tell you about another... Oh, and we've even got a text, but it's only partly there. We're just frozen. We're frozen in midair here. I think this must be some kind of a conspiracy theory come to life.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Oh, hi, Paul. Yes, you're back. I don't know. I think you were being canceled right on the radio. They're listening. They're all listening. I was asking you was, what are some of the red flags? Like if people are going to go online, as we discussed, and they do, what should they look out for so that they aren't being misled?
Well, I think one that's very relevant for today is the information, is the content playing to your fears, your rage, your aggrievement. There is a growing body of evidence that much of the misinformation out there is spread on the back of fear, right? So always ask yourself, is this content playing to my fear? Secondly, ask yourself, what is the evidence being used here? Is this just a testimonial? That's a big red flag. Just an anecdote. Or are they relying on a body of evidence? So more than one study. Is this a body of evidence that they're relying on? That may seem hard to do, but it's not. I think it'll be quite obvious. And the third thing, and there are many other things you can do, but the third thing I'll mention is, are they selling it something? Are they selling a supplement? Are they selling a brand? Are they selling some kind of unproven therapy? Always ask yourself that too. For me, the selling of supplements has become a major red flag. A lot of the misinformation mongers out there, they make their living by selling unproven supplements. So if the message, the content is coming from an influencer that is selling some kind of product, that should be a red flag. And then always try to do your best just to get a breadth of opinions on the topic from credible sources.
Right. We have Maureen on the line. Let's see what her experience has been. Hi, Maureen.
Yes, hi. I'm actually phoning from Montreal because I got up late, so I put my computer on Manitoba because I miss Montreal. But anyhow, it's an interesting subject because when my eldest son was 19, he developed chronic migraines, and it was just a nightmare. 3 months of migraines, 24/7. He was losing weight. He couldn't eat. It was a nightmare. And we went from neurologist to neurologist. And the common thing that happened was that they would go through a pharmaceutical protocol, and then when nothing worked, he was considered a difficult case, and then they had to find a way to get rid of him. And it was just horrible. None of them had kept up to date with the research that's done in chronic migraines. That, in fact, the fact that up to 25 to 30% of the general population, their serotonin receptors do not respond to the class of drugs called SSRI.
So did you end up getting help by going online?
I actually went online, but I didn't look at any source that was a secondary source. I went right to the National Institute of Health. In the United States, they have a site called PubMed, and they publish studies from across the world. And I just read and I read and I read. It took me 2 years, but I eventually figured out what the cause was for his migraines, and he's fine now. And what shocks me is that information is still not available to the general public, and my research was done in 2010. It's been 15 years, and I feel kind of guilty. I probably should sit down and publish it, though I'm not in the medical field. I'm trained as an architect, but, as a mother, if you have a sick child, there's nothing as fierce as a mother
Absolutely.
trying to protect their child, and
Sure.
I do have a bit of a scientific brain, so...
Well, thank you, Maureen,
learned
because
about
this kind of plays to the point that Timothy was talking about, that is not all misinformation out there. I'm going to let you go so that we can get Timothy to respond to your call just before we run out of time.
Yeah, so a source like PubMed, which is available to all, is where it's a database that holds, in general, not always, but peer-reviewed, trustworthy studies. That's where you're going to find clinical trials, et cetera, on a particular topic. But you do need to be careful, right? Because there is an expertise to aggregating science, to aggregating studies, to making sure that the studies, when they come together, point in a particular direction. There are people who are experts on doing exactly that. So I think that you do want to look at, if it interests you, look at those primary sources, but that you could also go to trusted sources that are aggregating that information in a responsible manner. So yes, that is often universities, those can be professional organizations, etc. The problem is sometimes it's difficult to interpret the evidence in a way that's going to be relevant to the particular clinical presentation. But yes, you can find good evidence online. Be skeptical, not cynical.
Right. Well, and Timothy, as Maureen was saying, she had a bit of a scientific bent herself, and of course was highly motivated, and unfortunately was able to finally get a diagnosis for her son, which is good news. So I think we have Daphne on the line. I'm going to give. Oh, wait a minute, maybe not. I'll just ask you. What can people do then to protect themselves from health misinformation, no matter where it's coming from? Because as you say, to distill even good information is difficult. But if it's also misleading, what do we do?
Well, I think one of the things you want to do is not rely on influencers, and online. So what do I mean by influencers? These are those wellness influencers, podcasters that are out there speculating on health, and they're building a huge brand. There was a study that came out not that long ago that found 60% of the content pushed by influencers and podcasters, etc., not fact-checked. right? Not fact-checked. Another study, has found that podcasters can have an incredibly strong influence, often because they become part of our echo chamber, right? They become part sort of almost of our community, so they can become overly influential. So, make sure you're not getting your information from those sources alone, right? The other thing I think, and this is a strategy we can all implement, always remember to pause, even for a moment. There's really interesting research that tells us that even if you pause for a moment, when you see content on your phone or on your computer, you're less likely to fall for misinformation, less likely to spread misinformation. And that's because so much of it plays to our emotions. So that pause, and I'm talking about just a brief pause, can really sort of invite us to think of embrace accuracy and reflect on what the content is really saying before we kind of internalize it.
Yeah, do you ever recommend that people should just completely abstain from Googling their symptoms? I mean, is that even a possibility?
I don't think it is a possibility, and I do think that internet's not going away, social media is not going away, and there is good content out there. I always worry it makes people too anxious, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So go in just trying to seek information, but recognize that there is a diversity of quality, I'll put it that way, on the internet.
Well, thank you very much, Timothy. This has been very informational on misinformation. So thank you for your expertise and for being with us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye. That is University of Alberta law professor and misinformation expert Timothy Caulfield. And thank you to the people that called and sent us texts. Well, we have just time to squeeze in one little tune here. Dan Winters, this is River. That's River, and that was Dan Winters' band. And we're playing them because you can hear more of them at Side Stage in South Osborne tomorrow night. You're listening to Radio Noon, and I'm joined in studio by Up to Speed host Faith Fundal. Hello.
Hello, Lori. It was one of the longest-running violations of human rights in the Canadian workplace. And there is a new exhibit that features this starting tomorrow.
At some point, they started introducing Are You Gay? And it was in that first kind of segment of them bringing me into question, answering their questions, where they said, okay, we need you to take a polygraph exam to make sure that what you're telling us is true.
And if it wasn't true, you would then be fired. We'll hear more about the LGBT purge that happened for a long time coming up on the show today.
That'll be fascinating. Thanks very much, Faith.
Thank you.
Faith Fundal hosting Up to Speed from 3 to 6 today, and join him for that story and many more. Thanks for being with us on Radio Noon. My thanks to Technical Director May McKillop, Director Sierra Sanders, Producer Wendy Parker, and YouTube live stream producer Travis Pedersen. And coming up, Quirks and Quarks. My name's Lori Hoogstraten. I'll be with you again tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.